Good evening, everybody, and good morning in China. It is indeed really a great honor and a pleasure and a thrill for me to introduce this evening YOSUKE Hayano, Principal Partner at MAD Architects, headquartered in Beijing. My name is Tom VEREBES, Professor of Architecture in the School of Architecture and Design at New York Institute of Technology. Firstly, before introducing YOSUKE Hayano, I would like to warmly thank Dean Perbellini for her support for this series of presentations and interviews titled Beyond the Envelope. Many thanks to David Diamond, Director of the Master of Architecture program here at New York Tech, for support for the third year of my MArch graduate seminar course, Beyond the Envelope, within which this series is set. This series of presentations and interviews could never be launched without the important work of our Lectures and Events Committee, especially Athena Papadopoulou, Alessandro Mellis, and the invaluable administrative support of Susan Sternberg. YOSUKE Hayano was born in Aichi, Japan, and is a first-class registered architect in Japan. As principal partner at MAD, YOSUKE oversees design works at MAD by directing each design team to materialize MAD's philosophy seamlessly from concept, sketch, and technical drawing to final architectural form. YOSUKE also oversees MAD's design language over different scales in each project, from human scale to architecture to urban scale, to create MAD's unique and site-specific architectural response to each project. He received his Bachelor of Material Engineering from Waseda University in Tokyo in the year 2000, Associate Degree in Architecture from Waseda Art and Architecture School in 2001, and his post-professional master's degree in architecture from the Architectural Association School of Architecture in London in 2003. He was a winner of the 2006 Architecture League of New York Young Architects Award, 2011 Design for Asia Award, 2011 Kumamoto Art Polis Award. He was a visiting lecturer at Waseda Art and Architecture School from 2008 to 2012, and at Tokyo University from 2010 to 2012. He was an external examiner at the AA in London from 2015 to 2019. I have to mention, on a personal biographical note, I'm immensely proud to have been one of YOSUKE's professors at the AA in London some 20 plus years ago during his post-professional graduate studies. The project in focus in today's evening presentation and interview is the Absolute Towers, completed in 2012 in Mississauga at the northern periphery of Toronto. In the words of MAD, or MAD, after the rapid urban development of the Industrial Revolution, the favored position that cities once granted to the sacred became occupied by capital and power. With the efficiency of modern mass production, cities became increasingly similar to one another. Standardized architecture was developed that could be put into use in any locale for any project. The slogan of the Beijing Olympic Games, faster, higher, stronger, seemed to herald a new era in which competition would be the means of survival. YOSUKE Hayano asks the question, is it possible for people to regain their emotional connection to their environment through the architecture we architects create? The Absolute Towers are designed at the intersection, as I believe, of the positions on ancient Chinese philosophy as related to nature, with contemporary agendas on sustainability. Nicknamed very endearingly as the Marilyn Monroe Towers, in how the contours of shapely bodies of the Twin Towers create a unique and even iconic image for the public imagination of this project. Noteworthy to me is how this project is perhaps one of the first well-publicized pieces of architecture designed by a China-based architecture practice during what we can call the post-open door era of China. The format of these events is a brief presentation by the architect, followed by a student-led interview. I'm pleased to introduce here online Master of Architecture final year students, Alison Iannucci and Adelina Sinanaj, who will conduct this interview with YOSUKE Hayano following his presentation. Join me, please, to warmly welcome to New York Tech, YOSUKE Hayano, Principal Partner of MAD Architects.
Thank you, Tom, for inviting me for this great lecture series. This means a lot for me, especially Tom already mentioned I studied my master's degree with Tom like 20 years ago. Then now we can meet like this. It's means really special for me. Also, this especially for the students after this difficult period of pandemic. I think like now I heard you can come back to the university, but I think this kind of remote lecturing series is one of the things that we get from this pandemic things. I think without that, we couldn't make it. I think this is also great, the changing idea, learning in different format. I think it's great. So for today's presentation, I divide my lecture into two parts. The first part, I gonna give you a brief introduction about our office, MAD Architect, about where we are locating, who we are, what kind of philosophy we are having behind each project, and how we transform this philosophy into each project to respond to it. The second part is more focusing on the main topic of this series, highlights building, absolute tower. Then how we join the competition, then how we get it, then how we transform the design to be buildable things, then how we complete it with construction. So it's gonna be roughly 20 minutes for the first part and 20 minutes for the second part. So totally 40 minutes. Then we can have 20 minutes of exchanging ideas. So I'm gonna start sharing my screen. So MAD Architects, so we are based in Beijing, capital of China. We have three partners, Ma Yan-song and Dan Chun. They are Chinese, and I'm YOSUKE Hayano, I'm Japanese. So this is a rooftop of our office at Beijing. But we have another two offices. One is Rome in Italy, the another one in LA in US. Then basically, main office is Beijing. We try to cover all the projects from Beijing, but we have an office in, like we have 15 people in LA, 50 people in Rome. So we try to work globally, try to realize our idea. So this is how we our project located. So which is some orange color is completed, and the red color is under construction. It's like globally we are having project. So this is location of Beijing office. It's very close to the Forbidden City. So we are here. So this is the office photo. So it's quite open. So we don't have any closed room. Like even three partners sitting somewhere there, then we can see like how are the projects going on, how you work. So this is the rooftop. We can see the CBD of Beijing in distance. So it's quite open environment. So this is sometimes we do happy hour at Friday night to introduce each other, to introduce how each project situation, how the difficulty, how we get idea to solve it. Then this is one of the image like we took for our office housewarming party. So we invited few friends coming in, but like usually this space is quite open for anybody in the office. Our office has some kind of vision of the future city. It's called Shanshui City. How the future of the city can be more harmonized between nature and human life, which ancient city has more balanced life for the human. But now, city we thought like now city is becoming more peace of each side, not considering like what's the environment, what is the site condition, but like how to develop your own project. But I think we thought like this is quite dangerous. So instead of like doing each project to respond to its requirement, we architects should have a vision of the future city, how future city should be. And from this the vision, we have to consider each project to push towards the future. So this is a different kind of approach. That's why for us, it's quite important to do different scale of the project at the same time. It's human scale, the architecture scale, also urban scale project. So that's why we are thinking the future of the city should be more seamlessly connecting in between the scale, the human scale, architecture scale, urban scale, like continuously having more character of the city, character of the place. So this is how is our challenge through all the projects. So from here, I'm gonna introduce few of our projects, how we try to put this idea into each condition of the project. The first one is Ordos Museum, which in the Inner Mongolia of north part of China. So this is the museum, the final things. So this was the same time which we are designing this museum, the same time with like when we are designing the Absolute Tower. So for us, it was quite interesting experience. Like we designed this kind of a museum, not in the big city in China, but more in rural sites, like in Ordos, very far away from the center. Then at the same time, we designed this high-rise building in Toronto. So this was the site at the beginning. When we went to the site visit, it's nothing, literally nothing. Just one building of the government is starting going up. Then this is the final one. So we try to create some kind of new urban space. So for us, it's quite important to not to show any architecture scale, but to show very wide non-architecture scale expression. Then you can, if you walk around, you feel very different experience. Like you don't have any clue to define what this architecture is about. This is the entrance to the museum. Then this is the interior space. The left is some lobby space. The right is the main entrance. Then you're gonna have like a gallery space on the left wing and the right wing. So this is the inside of the one of the main gallery space. It's huge space, like it's like a very different scale of architecture. But most important, like for this project, we try to create this integrating landscape outside of the building, like which is covering few function on the ground level. So after we finished it, we went there several times, like we saw in the evening, many people coming to this plaza. They're sitting there, like riding bicycle or so on, so on. It's really responding with their body to this topography, which was very interesting discovery for us, how this architectural landscape can trigger people to respond. The second project is Harbin Opera House. It's also on the north part of China. It's called Harbin. It's an opera house. So we got this through the competition. So this is the final opera house. So this is the main opera house, which has 1,600 seats. And this is small, multifunctional space with 400 seating. So we have a big urban plaza in front of the main entrance, which is on top of the parking space, because the site is on the wetland. The digging basement is not so economical. So we try to put the parking on the ground level, then lifting the main level above it. So this is the location. The Harbin is very north. It snows a lot with long winter, with long history of the music as well. City center was here, but it's quite becoming dense. The local government decided to develop to the north part of the river passing the city by having a culture island, which having opera house and the conference center together. So this become a new culture island for this city, including this bridge. So we got the project to design all this island, including landscape as well. So that's why this is part of the island. So this is opera house. So this is conference center. It's still under construction. So they having conversation through this big central point. So the challenge was how we can create the urban space of music for the future of Harbin, because opera house is very special. We try to understand how many people are gonna go to the opera house by buying this like a quite expensive ticket. So, but like many people, so our intention is how to invite like people who is not interested about opera, but come to this space as part of the new urban space of their city, which they are living in. So how we're gonna invite them to come to feel there is a new opera house there next to you. So that's why big intention was to create a big urban space here. Then another thing that we create the path for the people can climb along this facade. Even they don't have any ticket, but they can walk on here, then coming to the top of the fly tower, which is on the 36 meter, can have a nice view towards the river. So this is the main entrance and the urban plaza, which we try to keep very low ceiling, which respond to the human scale. Then from the side, we can start seeing the lobby space. Then if you're passing this walkway around the facade, you can reach to this Sky Plaza, which on the 36 meter above the fly tower. You can see the architecture. Then if you're coming back to the ground level, going into the lobby space, you're gonna see this very organic, very warm atrium, like welcoming you with very lots of natural light from the skylight. Because Harbin having long winter, also like a snow a lot. So that's why bringing natural light into the space is very important. Also like having this natural element, wood expression on the main space. We try to make the inside of the auditorium is very warm and intimated. It's like inside of the instrument. It's the space of the sound, space on the very opera. So this is very organic, but it's working with acoustic consultant to make very good acoustic situation. So next project is a little bit small in Japan, in my hometown, Okazaki, Aichi, in Japan. It's a very small kindergarten, mixture of the kindergarten and also language school. One of my friends from elementary school, he started this school, giving kids from 0 age to give them the class of English and Chinese at the same time by having a native teacher, because he thought like we should provide the place for kids to learn more like language capability to respond this current society. So he started this school using his house, which their parents built 35 years ago in this, because he thought learning language is quite important to be in the house situation. How to say, I want to go to toilet in different language. Then this became quite popular. Then he came to us like asking, we need proper school, kindergarten thing. So this was a kind of a picture when I visited. That he's my friend and client. The kids was using very small space to learn language. It was like a office space was like this. It's very difficult to use it. So he was asking to turn down this house, then build something new. But we said this house means a lot for their school, as well for their family. So that's why we thought we should make use of it, to use this house as a key to bring the past to the future. So that's why we work with a structure engineer, how we can use this for the future of the house. So this is the very initial concept model. So some of the existing wood structure, we kept it, then used for the new house. Then we wrapped with very organic envelope to create the space between, which become very ambiguous, very diverse space. So this is the construction. This is we try to demolish very carefully to evaluate which member we can use it. So this one we can use. Then we kept in somewhere else. So this is the construction. So so you can see there is old house inside and you have new house envelope. So it's box in box condition. So this is the final one. Again, we try to show very different scale of design, not to identify this as a house, but something unclear. So it's like a cave kind of entrance. You enter it, you start seeing this old house wood structure. Then even this nice wood beam, you find it when we turning down, then we use it. So each room is very ambiguously divided. You can feel there is somebody, but you can concentrate on your class as well. So if you come into the third floor, you start seeing the roof of the old house become a living space. When they are waiting for their parents to come to pick them up, then this is the very top attic space for the kids to come to find their parents, then coming down. So this is the view of the night. So you can still see this is responding to the scale of this housing townscape, but something to differentiate, then respond to the landscape in front. Then last project before going to Toronto, this is the small renovation of the tunnel in Japan as well, as part of the art festival. So this art festival is very special, very in the rural side, like to invite artists come into to find the potential to work with the local people, to bring new kind of perspective, to activate the community. So our site was Kyoto Tunnel. So because this site is very special with lots of snow in the winter, it's coming to like a 4-meter height, bring very strong like 4 seasonal change of the nature. That's why before in 1996, the government set this tunnel to provide a viewing platform for the tourists, for the visitor to see this the nature of very special cliff wall from the inside. So before I'm showing like how we change it, I want to show how was before. So this is a very small street of this area. The end of the street, you start seeing this river, which has very nice color. Then you're gonna start seeing this entrance of the tunnel. So you see this house was kind of gathering space for the tourists. Then this is tunnel. So overall, it's like 750 meters. So if you go in, there are 1, 2, 3 viewing platforms to see the river from the side. At the end, you're going to have another viewing platform to see the river from front. So this was the experience on the previous, like original condition. So if you go into the tunnel, you start seeing lots of messy elements. Then you walk in 400 roughly to reach the first viewing platform, which is like this. Then coming to the opening, you're gonna start seeing this river, very nice color, very dynamic. Then from the outside, it looks like this. Then coming to the last platform, which you can see a river from the front. You're gonna see like both sides, like with nice cliff wall, something like this. Then what was the requirement for us was to put the public toilet inside. Then renovate the entrance facility next to the entrance of the tunnel. Then put something on the last viewing platform to activate this tunnel. But we said we have to do everything. We have to do all together to transform this, not like a functional path to each platform, but to be a journey to meet the nature in different way. So this is how we changed and how we designed it. So this was the entrance facility for the people to meet, to wait. But this is how we change it. So this is the cafe. This is when you enter on the ground level. So there is the information center. Then you're gonna see some graphic, which is kind of a projection of the negative form of the tunnel. Then you have a shop cafe, then you have an entrance staircase to the second floor, which having this footpath on the center. So this onsen water is coming from the tunnel when they are digging 25, 30 years ago. So we try to use this onsen water for people to enjoy the first. Then if you look up, there's an opening, which is covered by the mirror, which actually is doing like this. The mirror is covering to have a reflection of the view of the river on other way around. So if you are taking the footpath, you're gonna see the river flipping above you, but you don't see this river, but you can hear the sound of the river. You can hear the sound of the bird outside. Also, you can feel the air is coming in. So this is kind of beginning of this journey. So this is the view from the outside. Then if you go into the tunnel, so it was something like this, but we transformed to this using 5 different colors, using original lighting setting, but like change the color to create kind of gradation of the color, which having a scene on each space. For example, the last one is more related to the water. It's blue. Then the entrance is more bringing natural light into it. So you're gonna start feeling you're entering something different space. So this is the first platform we kept as original to be as a memory for this tunnel. The second platform which we put the public toilet, something like this. They have 2 toilets in front and back, but if you go into the toilet, you can see through from the inside out only. So you can experience this view with very different setting. This is the final design. Then this is the final view from the inside. You can see people, see the scenery as well. Then this is a third platform, which was something like this. Then we transform to be like this, the space of the light. This is also using mirror, reflecting the outside to bring into the inside. So if you walk under it, it's reflect many. So if you come to close to the opening, the reflection has more colors, the color of the outside, the green and blue things. But if you are staying on the tunnel part, it's more a different experience. So if you start walking under it, you're gonna see lots of yourself, also your family, your friends, also like this changing kind of understanding of the space. This is the final platform, which was something like this. This is how we transform, putting the water on the floor, putting a very dull reflection of the stainless steel. So what you see on the floor looks like a river, but actually it's a reflection of the sky. Then you're gonna have another reflection of the water, the river outside on the ceiling of the space. So this was quite difficult to have very seamless transition from exterior to the interior using very different reflection effect. This is the view. Actually, this water on the ground, we pumped up from the river outside. So that's why it's quite cold. So we encourage people to take their shoes off, then go into this the water. Then because this river water is coming from the snow, so even summertime is very cold. So that's why people cannot stay so long. That makes the kind of a ripple on the water surface, which is gonna blur this reflection, which makes a very different experience of this space. So this is because outside the nature is changing every single day. So that's why reflection of this nature inside is changing every single minute. That was kind of our intention for people to feel, to understand the beauty of this nature. So if you don't have any people, if you don't have any wind, it's gonna have very perfect reflection, something like this. So this is a very special picture. It's a lot of people, but like having very clear reflection. So we hope that people coming here, they can feel, they can have kind of different emotional connection to the nature here, then going back to their daily life with different emotion. So till here was kind of brief introduction about our office and what kind of thinking we're having behind the scene, then also how we respond to each project. So from here, I'm gonna show about Absolute Tower in Toronto, Canada, which we got from the open competition, which has more than 300 entries. Then what was, because what you can see on the internet is like a final design, final build element. But I want a little bit share about story. Also like how was the competition proposal, then how we had a kind of a conversation with client and the team, then how we transform the design through the design process and how we control the construction period to be the final one. So I think I'm okay with the time. So this is the Absolute Tower, Toronto. Actually, competition was only single tower about this. The client was the developer who is doing this area. So this was the Tower A, Tower B, then they have Tower C. Then this is like Tower D. Then they have like a future plan to make another tower on this. Because Tom mentioned before briefly, this tower, this design is nicknamed as the Monroe Tower. Because they put, they had 7 finalists. They put this, the 7 finalists proposal on the newspaper of Toronto, asking the public to vote which one they like as part of their future city, which was kind of quite interesting experience. Then one of the people on the city, they start saying, oh, this looks like a Marilyn Monroe twisting her body dancing in the city. So it's quite elegant. So that's why this Marilyn Monroe Tower became quite a popular word in Toronto at that time. Then we got quite big support from the community to get this. Then after we start the clients going to the market, it's quite popular at that time. So they even could sell most of the unit in few weeks. Then they came back to us, then saying we have a plan of the Tower E, which we might be interested to design together as a kind of twin tower. So that's why that makes us to challenge from single tower design to make kind of urban conversation with as a twin tower. So that's why we have like a 2 together, but it's different treatments. You can see this original tower is more slim, slab edge, but this has more white frost glass on the balustrade. So they have more solid feeling. So it's how we're going to differentiate 2 towers together. So this is the site condition. So this is center of the Toronto. Toronto International Airport on the back side. So people coming to Toronto, landing at the airport, so passing this area, it's called Mississauga. They're going to the city center, downtown. So this become new gateway of the Toronto. So for us, the challenge of this was, what is the future of high-rise? Of course, high-rise is coming from very high dense urban conditions such as New York. How to maximize the potential of the site. Then they came up with the idea of typical floor, which is repeating same floor to the vertical way to gain more efficiency. But like in our situation, it's more like a rural condition. What is the highlights in the future in this condition? Shall we keep the same language from the very dense urban condition, or like we have to find the new way to challenge our typical floor? And that was kind of our big challenge. So this is the A, B, C. This is D, E. So this is kind of their property. So you can see this main road is coming from the international airport going into the Toronto. So they're gonna give kind of very fast impression of the future of Toronto, future of Mississauga. You can see this two twin tower having different orientation. So because this is sitting on the corner, how to respond to these two billboards. So the design is trying to create kind of urban gesture, also like creating kind of complexity using very simple methodology, which is like using same shape of the plan, but rotating in different rhythm. Sometimes rotating very slowly, but sometimes rotating more different speed. So which makes kind of like a movement from ground to the top. So this is the last summary of how this articulation of the plan rotation, ground level, how it starts, like how to rotate. But also you can see this is how the inside works. Like they have core, also they have shell wall. So next one showing more typical floor. So this is the final challenge of the structure. You have very tight, very compact, high efficient core area. Then you have shell wall, makes us to make this cantilever and rotation to be possible, but like always structure staying at this location. So this is the section. Higher one is 175 meter. The lower one is 157 meter. So how to make these two? Not to be exactly the same, but in same kind, but like how to have like a differentiation, but to have compensation for the urban city. So also like we very carefully studied how it looks from different angle, from very key urban space to look this two tower to have very different identity of the space. So from the corner, you can start seeing this. The first one is more sharp. You can see this shadow thing. The second one is having this white glass balustrade, which make less shadow effect, makes more solid effect. The ground level, how this touch, how to invite people walking around this two tower. Then you can start really seeing like from human experience, how this turning, like rotating, makes very special, unique urban experience. So the view from the one of the back balcony, which to see each other, to keep the privacy, but still keeping like this as kind of one development, one project. If you look down, you start seeing this like overlapping of the balcony. So it's compared to the building behind, these two twisting create very unique, also very special urban experience as well. So at the end, this street, next street is called Absolute, coming from this project. Okay, so from here, a little bit coming back to the period of the competition. This was the very early proposal of the project, which showing it's not like rotating is not the main issue, but like how to transform it, how to challenging, how to challenging to the typical floor to make very different expression to achieve the different kind of expression of the high-rise building, how high-rise can be in different shape in the future. So that was very, so you can see that time it's only one single tower here. Then we thought, working with the structural engineer, how we can realize this. So we thought like, of course, to make this round shape, we have to have round core, which has most efficient. Then how main structure part can be like a more circular thing. Then how to make this cantilever, changing the boundary, realized with the shell wall idea, so two together. So that time is the plan. It's very different from the final one. It's more logical, but it's more mathematical approach. Because we thought like we have to challenge the typical floor, but like we have to keep more typical room layout, which is easier for the market as well. And how this one coming to the ground level, still having an axis, but like showing this movement of this. So this was the winning ceremony. So she was the mayor of this Miso Saga. She was very famous. She has been on the mayor more than 30 years. Then at that time, she was more than 75 years old. But she was very active. Also, like we had like pictures. She said it's a very interesting project. It's nice to see this kind of dynamic things. It's very unique, very supporting the project. So Ma, Chun, and me, almost 20 years ago. It's very long time ago. Then we got selected as finalists. Then we started working with the local team to refining the design to be more buildable. Then for us, we learned a lot about what is high-rise. The high-rise project, high-rise architecture is very keen to how we challenge to the typical floor. This one. The second, how to end on the top, the skyline, how to create a skyline for the city. The number three is how to touch to the ground. What's kind of, because high-rise cannot be just like an object to just place it, but how to be part of the local context or site-specific. So this 3 points is very, very challenging for us. Then that's why we spend lots of time to defining how to end on the top, because we have kind of movement of rotation, but how to end this top. Then the second one is how to work with this the movement of rotation. So that's why at the final design, we have a little bit this white frost glass on the balcony to work with this rotation. So we have kind of some urban rhythm of this rotation. Then we checked with many different angles on the ground level, how in reality people gonna experience this new landmark of their city in from different angles to identify their orientation as well, become background. Then, as I mentioned, this become twin tower. So how they too can have better condition, better conversation, better composition, making kind of gate effect for the city. So this spent quite a few months to years to define it. Then we start construction. So digging ground, then coming up. So this is tower D. You can start seeing this very simple, very thin concrete slab with a shear wall. Then two together, then coming with very fast. Then we checked from many different the view distance as well, how this be different, but like how to work with part of the local context. So checking it here from different, it's coming more or less to the top. Then start having like a facade system. Of course, we try to make rationalization of how to make standard panel to be more percentage for the facade system for the balustrade. This moment we can start almost seeing as kind of final effect. So this from the different view, checking the future master plan, how this twin tower work as kind of a central landmark of this new area. So this is the final view. Also, this is the final page of today's my lecture about Absolute Tower. Thank you.
Thank you so much, YOSUKE. This has been a wonderfully thorough presentation on the work of your office, background, other projects since, and of course, a focus on the Absolute Towers in Toronto. I'd like to introduce Adelina Sinanjaj and Alison Iannucci, who will conduct the interview with you immediately from here. So thank you very much, YOSUKE. Please, Adelina and Ali.
Good evening. My name is Adelina Sinanjaj, and my partner in this interview is Alison Iannucci. And we want to express our gratitude for your outstanding presentation of the Absolute Towers. We also thank you for giving us a chance to interview you. From the various publication on the Absolute Towers, and as well inferred in your presentation, this project it means to be situated at the intersection of traditional Chinese philosophy, spirituality, and poetics, with a highly contemporary, global, and ubiquitous concern for environmental balance in traditional Chinese gardens. Built and natural elements are integrated as are literature, poems, and music in this synthesis. Can you describe the ethos of the Absolute Towers and more broadly the design approach at MAD on how to achieve your ambition of environmental balance, in which experience of so-called nature is set in harmony with the compounding density and complexity of our urban environments? Perhaps asked more simply, how does MAD aim for what your practice describe as a balanced environment and a harmonious civilization?
I think on my lecture, I a little bit explain about this point, but I think like our main challenge to why this highlights is always same, like because it's typical floor to challenge about the efficiency, which is very key for the client, for the project. But how this, our project background was kind of giving us a kind of space to challenge on it because it's on the suburbia. It's not on suburbia, but it's different, not in the very dense urban condition. Then it's residential. Then how we can make kind of diversity or make kind of complexity in the high-rise building, how each floor can be different from the floor below, floor above it, which is more like a natural setting, how this can be kind of creating a vertical connection, vertical relationship. I think that was very, very challenging. Also like how this skyline is going to show like urban gesture. I think that's why all of our project, high-rise project is having kind of similar question for ourselves. But I think for this, that's why how we're going to express this kind of growing feeling. Also like how they're going to coming from this ground, which is very site-specific, very characteristic for this context. I think this kind of like using this language, how we're going to use this kind of rotating, or like how to make like a rounded shape, then make very special, unique experience, but like also at the same time, it's much like a fit to this context. I think that was kind of our approach. We don't want to copy the same things to the different projects. We really have to see the potential of the site of each project. Also, especially this one is have many big city road in front, become a gateway. How to respond to this corner experience? How people gonna see this tower from the distance, then coming, getting close, then seeing more like a detail of the tower, then become part of like as part of your space, then passing into it. Then this kind of like experience in a few minutes is how to transform the understanding of this design. I think that was very important. That's why this like a speed, turn, growing is kind of our approach to this. But at the same time, we have to really respond to the requirement of the client or on the market, the square meter, usability, functionality, the mechanical facade, cost control. But overall, I think like of course at the end, the cost construction cost is more expensive than more boxy building, but market price go beyond it. So as one project, the client get really satisfied feedback from this. Also, we got a really positive feedback from the people living around this project. And that is quite important, not for us to think about only projects which you're doing, but how make a more valuable things for the city, or like a more urban elements. I think that's why this is might be my answer to your question. Is our approach is not thinking about this one single piece, but think about part of the environment to make this to be more better condition.
Can you elaborate how the Absolute Tower exemplifies the negation of paradoxes between densification of cities and the preeminence of the environmental quality of life in cities?
I think this as well, I may already touched this point, but because most of us, like we say, like high-rise, but like a high-rise in New York means different high-rise in Beijing. Of course, high-rise in Beijing is different from high-rise London, but also like which part of London, which part of Beijing has many different. Also like the functionality of the high-rise, the office, the hotel, mixed use, residential has very different. So that's why for us at the beginning, this was residential for the people who are gonna live there. They're gonna have daily life from morning to evening. So this has to be very carefully designed for them to have better daily life to have it. So that's why we put this 360 balcony for each unit, all units to have nice balcony. Even high-rise, we know it's very difficult to have a balcony to open the window because wind pressure is different on the higher level. But we thought it's quite important to have to go outside to feel the view, also to feel the natural environment. Also at the same time, you can start seeing, looking down, not to directly seeing the ground, but seeing some kind of a series of the life on your neighborhood. The people in that one floor below you, it belongs to this community. So usually, if you are living high-rise, you don't feel this kind of community feeling. But how are we gonna make this? You start seeing people in every day. You start seeing their daily life things on the balcony, living. So you're gonna have kind of like a big belonging feeling. I think that's how to. It's quite difficult to achieve this on the high-rise because of the management, because of the marketing thing. But I think this was really challenging. Also, like we are very appreciate our client to support this, to work together to make this a new type of highlight. Because I think many people seeing this project on the internet, they don't maybe not having this understanding, but I challenge how to create kind of community on highlights, how to make your emotional belonging feeling to this community thing. It was really important for us.
The Absolute Towers project was designed and built in an era which accelerated climate change is reshaping the way we think about our responsibility to the environment and our planet as a whole. Conventionally, in early modernity, glass towers were unconcerned with environmental performance, and this legacy of glass envelope presents a challenge for agendas of environmental sustainability. Can you share with us your position at MAD on agendas of sustainability aside from the pervasive ambition of augmenting energy efficiency and cost savings? Or in other words, can you elaborate how architecture can target more holistic intentions for ecological sustainability?
I think this kind of sustainable design approach is not only about number, it's not about figure, but how much percentage of facade to be more solid, more insulation, blah. But I think as overall, we have to consider. For example, this looks very organic, curved design, but each panel of the balustrade is using the straight panel. But because of its bigger radius, then from the distance, people won't realize this is the curved glass or straight glass. So for example, it's going to the same to the facade behind as well. Also, of course, we use the glass facade on the boundary, but at the same time, because of this curved shape, which can dramatically reduce the wind pressure on the upper level, which we make a lot of different CFD simulation. At the same time, also we did some tunnel test, how this can reduce the pressure to the structure, which can reduce the cost to some part of the structure. So that's why we have to balance which part, we challenge which part you're gonna give more space. So that's why overall, this is quite, of course, like insulation is one of the big topics, how to keep heat efficiency to the inside. And this is one element. But I think we architect has to have more view, perspective to zoom out to see the architecture project as part of the environment, how this can work as part of the natural setting of the environment. So that's why I think it's not only about, so we have to be careful, not only about targeting the number, but how this number means. So the overall, like our purpose, how this can be more efficient or more sustainable in use. That's why we always talking like if you like your T-shirt, you keep using for 20 years. I think that is more sustainable, like even a little bit different. I think this design, good design can help the society in different ways as well. So that's why I think it's two different perspectives. Of course, to have very deep understanding what each sustainable design agenda is asking for, then how design has to respond to it. But at the same time, how we can provide better urban setting or better architecture for the community, which they can keep using or keep putting more meaning on it, to renovating or like to have different, adding more meaning on it or something like this over the generation. I think that is more challenge. Also, like this is how we are thinking about this topic of sustainable design.
Perhaps related, do you believe architecture needs to resemble or mimic nature in order to be in harmony with the environment? Please share your thoughts on this topic.
This mimicking design thing of this natural element, we do lots of design research. I think Tom knows quite well about this. How? Because they are more purely responding about environmental things, like also like they are responding to the gravity of where we are living this world. But they have their agenda in different, like how to survive, how to keep their species. But we have architecture, so I think that's why we cannot be directly transforming their appearance into our architecture, but we have to understand the meaning of their system. Why, for example, we do lots of study about the animal skin, how they can respond to the different humidity, how different animal, like a fish, for example, snake, they have a totally different way to respond to the environment. So that's why we understand like this is quite important. Also, this quite sophisticated system. But we try to understand how this can make overall system to be better. Like because this skin system of the fish is making them to move easily in the different stream, different like water pressure, so on and so on. But also like giving more breathing function. So how we gonna then as coming to the question, how architecture facade can make different experience for the people living inside, not only about building itself, but at the end, this has to come to the people. Like people gonna be the one who gonna use this space to be more meaningful. So that's why I think this like understanding it, but like how to transform it into architectural language. I think that's quite a different outcome we should come. I think like in different scale, more human scale, architecture scale, also urban scale has different input and output from this learning from mimicking natural environment.
Our next question concerns the context of the project and the project's relation to the cultural imagination of the public towards the identity of the architecture of the Absolute Towers. The towers are characterized by their highly identifiable figuration as they peer above the relatively flat suburban landscape of Mississauga to the north of Toronto. Not so different from the public branding of Frank Gehry's Fred and Ginger buildings in Prague, which capture the dynamics of form of two interacting figures. The profile of the Absolute Towers has been likened to the body figure of Marilyn Monroe as the profile of shapely bodies. You had shared with us in your presentation how the nickname, the Marilyn Monroe Towers, had arisen from early newspaper publications of the project. Were you pleased with this nickname?
I think, yes, we are very pleased. And also like we are very pleased that the society or community responds to the design. I think it's quite rare to see the community say something, they put something like comment on design thing become quite popular. I think this is quite a positive aspect of this whole process. I think that's also like we got a few emails coming from the local community saying like we very enjoy about this transforming from the original one to with your design. Like we very thanks a lot about this. I think it's become quite landmark of this new area of Mississauga, but in positive way. I think that's why I think landmark is not just seen every day, but it's like a really experience from different angle. I think that's become part of their daily life. How to this become background of your life. I think that's making kind of your personal connection to the design, to the through the architecture, to the urban space as well. Tom, are we okay with the time?
Yes, we're okay with the time if you're okay with the time. Have some more time?
I'm okay.
Okay, great.
And can you please share with us the values regarding iconicity in architecture? Please tell us honestly, do you mind if we categorize the Absolute Towers as iconic architecture?
I think iconic, this word of iconic is quite difficult to define. But absolutely, I think this Toronto, this tower is iconic for the city. Also, like people is already considering this kind of this as kind of a very iconic cityscape of their city as well. It's becoming part of their cityscape as well. But I think that's why for us to making iconic figure is not important, but I think like what I explained over during the presentation, how we challenge, how we try to understand this local society, then how we understand the people's life there, then how our architecture can bring different dimension or like different kind of setting for their future. I think this is a more important thing. That's why people see this as kind of this design as kind of like bringing kind of new aspects to their urban life. I think that is quite iconic. Also, like, I think this the city accept this kind of challenge for the future. It's quite iconic as well.
Shifting our discussion to the paradigms of the skyscraper and the ways in which the Absolute Towers innovates upon the some prevailing legacies of the formal and material typologies of the skyscraper. We are interested in what the Absolute Towers are not and what this project critiques implicitly. Related to MAD's interest in the paradigms which can be defined as naturalistic, organistic, humanistic, and ecological, we are interested in how these worldviews can be instrumentalized as alternatives to the context of the towers driven by formal and typological rationalism. Given the backdrop of the history of modernism and the vertical extrusion and orthogonality as the prevailing techniques of tower design, can you share with us how you conceive the Absolute Towers as an alternative to this history and mode of practice?
I think this as well. So when I touched over my presentation, this was very pure challenge about the meaning of the highlights. What is the future of the highlights for us? That's why after this, we have many highlights projects, but always we having kind of similar challenge. How the future of highlights can be better place for the people to live. How this can, this like a vertical connection can be new kind of urban space, which we couldn't have before without highlights, but how this like a new kind of urban space in the highlight can bring more pleasure, more different dynamic urban space for our community society. I think that's why it's big challenge. It's really challenge because highlights is challenge about square meter efficiency, more functionality, but how to, so that's why I mentioned this. We are very appreciate our clients for this Absolute Tower to share the vision of the future of the high-rise residential tower can be different from the previous traditional one. Not just to be differentiated, but like to not just be iconic, but like to more deeper meaning. Like how can this bring in different understanding or like a different thinking for the people, for the society? I think same for the different high-rise, the very urban setting, the different office building, different commercial hotel high-rise building. How this can be more rich and diverse urban space we can have on the vertical way. And that's really making different thinking points for architects. Also, like this cannot be realized by only single tower, but if you have cluster of tower, how this can be more diverse, more dynamic, more different urban setting. So I think this is quite key, but very important topic for our office to keep coming back, to keep asking ourselves how the future of the city can be a better place for the people to live.
To quote MAD architects in publication, your practice views towers in general as, quote, symbols of bravado and the expression of wealth and prosperity. Can you comment and elaborate on this position?
Can you repeat again?
To quote MAD architects in publications, your practice views towers in general as, quote, symbols of bravado and the expression of wealth and prosperity.
I think not only about high-rise project, but I think all of our projects. I think as I mentioned at the very beginning of my lecture, we are trying to think how this can be part of the better like urban setting in the for the future city. So that's why how they can break through to the traditional like understanding of the urban design or architecture design, but how they can provide more meaning, more like a different perspective for the people, for the community to come to make more different activity on it, or like how to trigger different response from the community for the as urban space as well. Like for example, the urban plaza of the Harbin Opera House. Now you're gonna see, we see many people making a wedding photo or making dancing, which was not our intention, but this is how the community people find the potential on this space and how they respond to use as kind of background of the urban space. I think this is same for all our projects. I think how this all our projects can really trigger the imagination of the people, imagination of the society, a little bit push forward to the future, and how to bring more diverse and more rich urban life or daily life for the people.
Considering the global and urban consequences of the absolute tower, this project is situated, as discussed earlier, in a suburban context. Yet it speaks to the fundamental critique of replication of architectural sameness in business districts worldwide. Can you please comment on the specificity, form, and the uniqueness of characters of towers, and when multiply the implications for emerging densification of cities? Asked simply and more directly, you clearly do not want boxy vertical extruded towers, but you can imagine organic building forms proliferating in all cities.
I think this is again, it's a bit, we have to be a bit careful about I don't say that boxy is kind of like a normal shape of the high-rise, but like a more approach to the high-rise building. And because people that kind of automatically creating like a typical floor without asking what the meaning behind it. But like just high-rise coming to the typical floor, then become outcome of the final design is quite straightforward. But we want to see what this the life inside of this tower, or the people, what they're gonna see, what they are looking for. I think how we can provide more different, more like a valuable or space for their daily life. I think this is quite our challenge. So that's why I think form-wise, I don't think it's quite important. Also, like if there are lots of organic shaped high-rise tower in suburbia, it's become new normal. There's nothing sticking out. I think that's why we always have to try to work with much bigger perspective. How this area, what kind of things they needed, and how our design can be participating and what can help in this area to be more harmonized as the urban setting, as natural setting, and how people can better enjoy their daily life. So that's why I think this we have to be very, very careful, not jumping to the form, but we have to really see the background, to see the context behind it, then what's really people are looking for, then what's really necessary to do, then how our design can articulate and participate.
We're interested in the technologies and performance of the towers, the intersection of the mathematics of formal differentiation, with the performance of structural engineering and the behaviors of daylighting. What was the basis of generating the rotational logic of the plan from a range of increments from 1 degree to 3, 6, and then to 8 degrees?
Yes, I think can I ask question as well?
Sure.
After this question, because I think it looks like it's too automatic. Yeah, I think that I mentioned during the lecture. I think like first, ground level has to answer to response this corner condition to become like a main entrance. Then start rotating, like which way, to the clockwise or anti-clockwise. Like we really have to respond. Then ground on the bottom part, like we try to make very gradual change, very gradual move. Then once you come to the above the surrounding highlight building, which is around 80 or 60, then how we're gonna start showing a quick move, because which gonna be the where people can see from the distance. Then how it's coming to the top. Then again, from the distance, you're gonna see very careful. So how to end, not with a movement, but like a moving towards the sky to become very calm. So this kind of a transformation of the articulation of the rotation was very responding to the urban context as well.
The torsional form is underpinned with a surprisingly simple and inexpensive structural solution. Please summarize again how you worked with your engineers to make this both spatially impactful, yet cost-effective and buildable. Also, for detail, how does the secondary structure transfer loads when the column is disrupted?
Yeah, is this the last question?
There is one more after this, in this one question.
If you have time for maybe 10 more minutes, is that okay?
Okay, yeah, because I think it's more meaningful. I think after this, like maybe two of you, like you can mention like your expression about this conversation as conclusion. I think a more personal response to this as well. So to answer your question, yes, I think this is quite important to have to share the key challenging of this project with the whole team, with client, engineer, structure engineer, the MEP, because usually we have so many consultants, so many different professions to work on one project. But like some of them, they don't share, they don't really get the very key challenging of the project, which makes the conversation or like a collaboration very difficult. So that's why, as I mentioned, like we could share this like a challenge. Why we're doing this design with client at very, very beginning, but at the same time we could share this kind of why we're rotating, why we're challenging for the highlights, why this like residential. We need this balcony. This kind of challenge we share with the local architects as well, the local design team, like structure engineer. So they have really deep understanding about why, what's the purpose, what's the hidden meaning behind the design, and which part we have to keep challenge, which part we have to balance it, then with work with the cost, the condition, or to realize key concept, key idea, which is very, very difficult, but but once it's same for all the project I showed in the front, for example, tunnel of the renovation of the tunnel. At the very beginning, we try to show the very key final rendering, which we want to produce the means for the people to come to. So that's why with a very higher level of the local government, I think that's why that makes the team to have a common goal. Then how to find a solution to reach it. I think that's always same for our project, but I think this is a part of architect's profession to work with the team.
And can you describe how the rotation of the floor plan impacts the deflection and reflection of sunlight?
Yes, I think that's as well, because we have some part become quite deep cantilever, which makes quite good shading effect. Then this is kind of one topic, like we always test shading sunlight effect for the back facade as well. But still, this is also balanced. I think like to reaching this urban gesture, creating quite a different experience from the distance, from the close-up for this building. It's kind of like a driving factor of the design.
Pivoting to the body of work of MAD architects, please share with us the genealogy of projects which preceded the Absolute Towers, and also the impact of this project on MAD's projects since its completion.
Yes, I think simply before this project, in 2 years, we did more than 100 projects, including like a proposal, competition, like thing, blah, 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 blah. None of them realized. But after we won this competition, people, like clients, start believing we can realize this. This kind of architecture can be realized, like somehow. And they see this final organic form built with good quality. I think that's give us like not like all clients believing this kind of organic architecture, but I think they are believing us. We are having kind of capability to turning this idea into the reality, working with a team. I think that's controlling all aspects like cost, construction, so on, so on. I think that was quite helpful for us to more developing and also but keeping us more challenging on the different category of architecture. That's why I mentioned, because we're doing this Absolute Tower, we are doing the Ordos Museum in China, two together. One is in Canada, one is in China, but in very local city. Has a very, very difficult, very different as well. It's a very difficult experience, but we learn a lot. How we have to adjust our design. We can, for example, all those museums, we try to make very defined detail for the facade system. But like a worker who's gonna put in the panel on site has doesn't have any architecture background, of course, but we have to rely on their fabrication and construction. So it means our design has to respond to this condition, the context as well. So how we understand this building industry, then how we're gonna put it into our design process was also kind of a big lesson we get from these two projects doing at the same time.
MAD architects are credited with being the first post-open door policy China-based practice to build impactful and highly recognized architecture abroad. Also, as a Japanese national partnered with Ma Yongsung, a Chinese national in Beijing, can you reflect on this achievement and its global significance?
I think, yeah, when we are doing this project, is just before Beijing is transforming into Beijing Olympic 2008. We are seeing this rapid transformation of the city as well. It's quite significant experience how to see, really witnessing how the city is really changing to kind of monumental event for the city as well. Then we're doing this Absolute Tower in Canada from 2006, then also Auditors Museum. Then we start doing a few projects in Beijing, in China as well. So I think that we are kind of very lucky to have this kind of experience in different contexts, get to understand. They also always because our first project in abroad in Canada, then another project following in China. Then always we have this kind of two different, very different building industry background projects. But our challenge, our key attitude is always the same, how architecture can really be part of the urban space, then to bring in different aspects for the people, for the community. I think that at the same time, we keep developing this idea, how we can learn from natural environment, how architecture space or urban space can be natural extension of the urban context, urban environment, or how we can challenge the boundary of the building, boundary of the architecture, how we can bring more elements coming in, the more elements coming out, how make more dynamic conversation to the context, so on. So I think this is maybe this attitude is more oriental, how instead of making very strong form or very strong element onto the site, but how our architecture can be more broad, become part of the context, right? How to respond, how to reflect local flow of the energy, or a flow of the people. This become more ephemeral things approach. I think that's having this key core approach towards architecture or towards urban space, but at the same time we have an opportunity to work on the project in different contexts. Canada, Toronto, for example. Then now we have several projects in US, then some Europe. But always key things we try to understand, go deep to get your personal feeling about this site, community, people, like then how our architecture can, how we're gonna set our architecture as part of their space, their city.
More broadly, can you comment on the importance of organic curvilinear forms in contemporary architecture? And also, can you position MAD architects' contributions to this disciplinary culture?
I don't say that this curve or like a organic form is key element to define our practice, but I think this is our attitude, how our architecture can form to the requirement of the community, of the requirement of the functions they are looking for, then how this can be more dynamic or more activated urban response. And that's why that makes us to come back as kind of results of the design, which is having, also like our curvature is not coming from automatically, coming from a computer or coming from like a mathematical calculation, but it's more like an emotional response. Like we do lots of sketch, we do like try to find one line which we feel which fits to this context, to fit to this site from lots of possibility. Then next line is coming to respond to it. So that's why it's coming the kind of internal response conversation, like how to make final architectural design to be much more natural to much more natural organic response to the condition of the sub-project.
This interview and the study of the set of projects and the Beyond the Envelope series of presentations and interviews are set within a Master of Architecture course here at NYIT. As such, the audience of this event and this interview is the future of architecture. In this context, please share with us, from your point of view, any advice you may have for the next generation of architects.
I guess this is the last question for today's. I think this is very key. I feel. Because especially you had a very difficult period of the pandemic, which detached from the university, but you have to work by yourself. But I think this maybe it's quite important, because I think being yourself, what you think, what kind of future of architecture can be, also how the architecture can be providing better life, better urban space for the future, for the people. That's why it's better to challenge about yourself. Then also you have to really deep asking yourself, what kind of architecture you want to create, what kind of architect you want to be. I keep doing it, because now I feel I'm in front of Tom. I become 20 years back. I'm sitting in the class, doing my project. But I think it's the same, every single day, we're doing this kind of asking how this project can be better meaning for the people who are going to use in the future. What kind of feelings they're going to have in the future. They're going to see this, they're going to use it. How this can be necessary space for the city of the future or something like this. And that's why I think for you to keep at the university, you have to have a kind of deep asking yourself, what kind of architecture you appreciate, what kind of thing you want to create, you're going to project to the future. I think that's why being yourself, but at the same time, digging your emotion, what kind of thing, what kind of moment you feel you are more touched, or what kind of space you stay in your memory. Why it still stay in your memory. What kind of moment you appreciate about the kind of thing. And that's why I think you better, after pandemic, you can travel many places. So I think better go to see or experience many different architecture to define what kind of architecture you like, and asking why you like it. Then that's gonna give you the path for the future. I hope it's gonna be, yes, I hope you're gonna enjoy this for your rest of life.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate the chance to interview today. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank you, YOSUKE. Really very heartfelt thank you. This has been a very special opportunity, very meaningful opportunity. You've been so thorough with your presentation and so generous with your answers. Thank you very much on behalf of everyone at New York Tech. Thank you.
Thank you.
All the best. I hope we catch up soon, and wish Martin as well, my song, and I hope we get to see each other face to face sometimes very soon.
Yeah, maybe in New York.
I hope so.
Soon. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.